Is the sound okay, by the way? Okay.
I'm checking in with Dawn right now.
Hello, everybody.
Betty?
Hey, how are you, Betty?
How are you? Fine. How you doing?
Good.
Good, good.
All right, Dawn is hopping on. I know we're also expecting a couple other foundation board members, Kelly, but once he hops on, we'll kind of just go ahead and kick it off there. Luckily, I've got
Sounds great.
I've got some intro slides I'll go through like we discussed, and then I'll hand it over to the real experts in the room here.
Oh, you must be talking about somebody else. All right, well, I'll follow your lead.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Dr. Smith.
Hey, Pat Schumann. Let's see
Dr.
what.
Smith,
Nice to
how
see you
are you?
again.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm about to zoom out. We got Betty Spencer, and I see Chris, and I see Sue, and Kelly. Is that?
And I'm Kelly. I'm Kelly Castleberry.
All right, I see Trina is there and Belinda.
That's actually Tara. We have a staff member in our office whose name is so close to Trina Sweeney that people think they're related, but she's Tara Sweeney.
Ah, she's Tara Sweeney.
Yeah, yeah.
And Amber works in Belinda, and Belinda work together.
Yep.
And Kristen, is she in your office?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She likes to hide too.
Is this just foundation people or everybody was invited?
Everybody was invited. And this is
Maybe
who.
they zoomed out after last night.
Yeah. That was a marathon, wasn't it?
Well, I had two back to back, so I had checked out at 6:30.
That's funny. We talk about Zoom fatigue. Didn't even know what Zoom was a year ago.
Yeah.
Now everybody has Zoom fatigue.
If I'd been smart, I'd bought some Zoom stock.
So you're smarter than I am.
Because it does seem to be the preferred platform. Most of the groups I'm involved with use Zoom.
So before we start this, you talked about the, and I was rushing and I don't know if I fully understood, but I guess you'll send something out about that 5-year pledge of $25,000. What was that?
Oh, that was that $25,000 is the minimum to be considered a major gift. And so on that slide, I was just pointing out that qualifies as a major gift and it can be pledged over a period of up to 5 years.
And can you say where you want it to go?
Yeah, yeah.
So is that going to be part of a strategy for, I don't know if you call it the quiet phase, you know, before we started the capital campaign, we had a little window there.
Right. I think I think we're doing strategic planning first, but yeah, definitely as we ramp up our major gifts program, we've got well, Sue had some success today with a couple of new scholarships at that level. We've got several others in the works. It just seems to be a level that people think, oh, I could never do 25,000. But then if you think about it as 5,000 a year over 5 years, well, maybe they could. So it is often where we start talking, and we have, gosh, I'd have to count them up. But even during the capital campaign, that was a very popular, because people could create a named fund for that level. So we've got a couple dozen of them, at least, scholarships at that level. And then of course, the hope is that people will add to them over time. I'm sorry, this isn't the scholarship session, is it, Chris?
Well, Pat, this is no, but it's, I saw Don, he's on now. Hello, Don, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just, I left my darn tablet at home, so I wanted to be able to be seen, but I can still be heard, and you guys will still be able to screen share with me and stuff like that. So
Perfect. So, and Pat, is a good segue from your major gift discussion in establishing these things at $25,000. One of the things I would like to do is just go ahead and kick off this planned giving discussion. This is something that came about from the other sessions we had, just trying to get information to our alumni and supporters and faculty and staff about the opportunities people can explore to make a big impact here on our campus. And so I'm very excited to have to join us today, really, kind of two experts in the field, not just of retirement planning, but also insurance, to share with us some strategies that we can explore to really, again, create a big impact here at West Virginia State University. So I'm very excited to have Kelly Castleberry and Don Wilson join us. Both, I'll let them introduce themselves, but they're both local Charlestonians. They're also both have a pretty big, pretty deep, big history here at State. Both attended courses here and have supported us over the years. And so it's exciting to be able to get kind of folks kind of being able to do family first of sorts. So I will now let Pat say a couple words just around, what she would like to achieve with this meeting and why this is such a big deal for us. And then I'll just go into the program.
Before Pat, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I can't get Kristen. Colonel Fisher is trying to get in. We need to send him the Zoom link again if we could.
Okay, Kristen, can you take care of that, please?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris. During the capital campaign was when we really started to emphasize plan giving. And it is a significant reason that our endowment has grown over the last several of years. But I appreciate everybody who's on the call today, because the thing about plan giving is you can do more than you think you can. And there are benefits for the donor and sometimes for the donor's loved ones in a thoughtfully developed plan gift, and the impact on the future of the university and creating that financial foundation for the future is huge. So, but an opportunity to discuss it and get a conversation going and an opportunity to ask questions of the experts is really valuable in helping people think about what they could do. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you so much to Don and Kelly for sharing your expertise with us, and to Chris for putting the program together. It has tremendous potential for West Virginia State, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. So I am going to, we've gotten pretty good at this now, share my screen. And I really just want to, if you will, kind of build a framework for the discussion today. And so as we look at estate planning, plan giving, leaving a legacy, I think it's important to kind of define what plan giving is, right? And so one of the best descriptions I've found of plan giving is plan giving allows alumni and friends to make larger investments in the future of WVSU than they may have thought possible. So what we do with plan giving is we come up literally with a plan, a strategy for how donors, how individuals might want to achieve their goals here on our campus. We look at assets, right? Not just cash, but assets. So that may be property. Those may be equities, stock, mutual funds. A number of different areas are considered in helping folks develop a plan to achieve what they want here. And it's interesting in looking at this description of plan giving, because I once worked with an individual who said what plan giving really does is, it allows folks to give upwards of sometimes 200 times more than they give annually to an institution without actually stroking a check. And I think that in and of itself, as you begin to talk about campaigns and these big numbers that universities are kind of trying to achieve, plan giving is a huge component of those aspirations. So as we look at the types of plan gifts, and again, I don't want to take a lot of air out of Kelly or Don's sail here, but I want to kind of describe how we categorize these, right? So you have simple and outright gifts. Those are gifts through cash, securities. Folks can outright give real estate, rental properties, or retirement plan assets. And then you have gifts that have financial benefits, right? So life income gifts, or gifts that may benefit one's children or other loved ones in their passing, and then those assets come to the university. But then you also have gifts payable upon death. So life insurance, simple bequests, and estate gifts. All of these gifts, right? You may use one of these options, you may use a combination of these options, but all together, we can develop a plan for donors that, again, may help them achieve certain goals they want to achieve philanthropically, certain goals they want to achieve financially. And it helps the university do things, build endowment, and so forth. And so why does plan giving matter? Endowment growth. Pat talked about it, but endowment growth is a huge benefit of plan giving. Obviously, plan giving is typically not in a gift you get to see immediately. It takes investment. It takes building relationships. And so for us, it's trying to understand what the donor wants to achieve, and then using the information we get from conversations with them to achieve those goals. It helps to broaden giving opportunities, right? So if we were talking to a donor only about giving us a current gift or a cash gift, their options may be very restricted. But as we talk about folks' abilities to use retirement assets, life insurance policies, it expands upon what they would be able to do during their lifetime. Has a bigger impact, plan gifts do. Plan gifts are often referred to as one's ultimate gift. And that is because, again, it looks at all of an individual's or donor's assets. And then donors begin thinking impact. They think impact over dollars. So as we talk with donors about plan giving, and we talk about plan gifts, deferred cash gifts, what we begin talking with donors about are, look, what type of impact do you want to have? What type of legacy do you want to leave, right? What do you want to achieve, as opposed to always talking about, well, how much is it going to cost to establish this or to do that? And so it just, again, it helps us to begin to elevate the gift discussion to be more donor-centered and more about how they can leave a legacy here at our institution. And so right now, what I would like to do is, because I see a basketball in your background there, Kelly, is pass it over to Kelly Castleberry. I will allow Kelly to introduce himself, but just know, very happy to have him on the call. And he is someone who I think we can get a lot from, specifically as it relates to what's taking place in the markets and what's going to be taking place in the future. So Kelly.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Pat, for having me. And I'm sorry Dr. Pride couldn't make it. I look forward to kind of meeting her over Zoom, but maybe sometime soon I'll get to meet her. Chris, you got to have a preview of the slides that I'm getting ready to share. And, after I heard your intro, maybe I should have made the comments more specific to plan giving, which, probably you know, 2 or 3 slides are dedicated to planned giving, but also intend to talk a little bit about current gifts, because I think we have some ideas that clients can use right now to actually make current gifts. And
Right.
as you all talked about, especially Pat, what she talked about, you know, current gifts are essential. All charities need operating gifts to operate, but those planned gifts can truly be transformational, and we'll talk about those more in a minute. But I think they're both essential. You couldn't get by without both. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on both. But I'll tell you a little bit about me. My history with West Virginia State goes back about 4 decades. I can remember fondly the days I was there. I remember all my professors, I remember my classes, and I'm really glad to help out because West Virginia State was there when I needed them. So I'm glad that I can maybe pay you back in some small way, and hopefully I can continue to. I'm one of the founding members of the Greystone Consulting team here in Charleston, West Virginia. Greystone Consulting, for lack of a better definition, is the high net worth and the institutional division of Morgan Stanley here in Charleston. There are 55 Greystone teams nationally, and we're ranked in the top 10. We're right here in Charleston. We consult on somewhere between $4 and $5 billion. That's spread across both institutional and high net worth clients. I will say a large portion of that $4 to $5 billion is in private and public foundations and endowments, but an even greater percentage is working with high net worth families, both here in West Virginia and all over the country. And we do a lot of investment management, retirement planning, estate planning, and so on. But one of the things that I tend to specialize in is charitable giving, because I love seeing the impact that it can make. You know, I served on several boards and love giving back. I feel very blessed. Like the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I've always felt like that. So I feel like I'm glad I can give back. So let me pull up if I can make sure I share the right screen. I think I tried to close out anything with anything confidential. Is that the correct screen, Chris?
Yes, it is.
All right, fantastic. Well, so again, I'm happy to be here. See if I can get this second screen. But like I said,
Kelly, let me just ask a question. Are you here as a member of the foundation or as an alum?
I'm just here as a friend of the schools. Anything I can do to help the school, but I'm neither on the foundation board. I'm not officially an alumni. I did take 2 years worth of classes, but actually graduated from Marshall.
That makes you an alumni.
Okay, well, then I'll be a de facto alumnus.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so you fit in the category of alumnus.
Okay.
And okay, so that we know you're a friend because you're an alumnus.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good deal. Okay, no problem. You know, everybody knows charitable giving's been very different this year. I won't necessarily say it's bad. I work with lots of charities, and some have really struggled to get donations, and some have actually been, I'm not going to say overwhelmed, but been very blessed with many donations. A lot of charities that work with frontline healthcare workers, with food banks, with feeding kids, things like that, they've actually done pretty well donation-wise. Even some in education institutions, but a lot of education institutions and other like arts organizations, things like that, have really struggled to get donations because people have been so afraid with what's gone on because of COVID. You know, the stock market's bouncing around, the economy's very uncertain. We've got an election coming up. It just seems like very uncertain times. So a lot of people are kind of afraid to turn loose of some of their money. But like I said, from a 30,000 foot perspective, if you think about charitable giving, there's just 2 types: current gifts and planned gifts. And so just some common types of current gifts. And of course, there'd be too many to mention on one slide and in this phone call, but typical common gifts would be things like cash, appreciated stock. And it's something I'm going to talk a little bit more about here in a minute, qualified charitable distribution. I don't know that it applies to anybody necessarily on this call, but I'm sure we all know somebody that it might apply to. So everybody knows what cash is. Everybody gives cash, and probably the most common form of gifts to charities is cash. But more and more people like to look at different ways to give. And one thing I want people to consider right now are appreciated stocks. One reason that people should use stocks, again, if you think about what the stock market's done this year, Chris had asked me earlier in the phone call about, what the market did today. But as you all know, the market started off the first of the year doing great. Just to use round numbers, the S&P started around 3,200. It went up to 3,400. And then because of COVID, within 1 month, it had the fastest sell-off in the history of the stock market, down to 2,300. And then here just a few months later, we're already back up to relatively new all-time high. So a lot of people have appreciated stocks. And if you can give that appreciated stock away rather than giving the cash, some people like Chris was implying, they may not feel comfortable turning loose of a whole lot of cash right now, but they might have a stock position that's appreciated. And that tends to be kind of an easier way to make the gift. And I don't want to necessarily throw anybody on the call under the bus, but someone that picked up early and was talking about how she bought Zoom stock. And, that would be a prime example of something where it's appreciated so much, probably from where she bought it. And she might be sitting there thinking, now I might be interested in selling some of this, but if I sell it, I'm just going to have to pay capital gains tax. So what a lot of people do, you can take, part or all of that stock and you can give it away to a charity and you get the full market value of the gift as a tax deduction. And you've also avoided the capital gain tax on the sale. The charity sells the stock and of course they don't pay capital gains. So you kind of get a double tax benefit from giving appreciated stock as a charitable gift. And so that's attractive to a lot of people, and it doesn't use their cash that way. They get to preserve their cash for maybe other purposes. And then I put that concept down at the bottom on gift lumping. And a lot of people have asked us that this year. We've started to make sure we talk to all of our clients about a strategy called gift lumping. And I'm not sure if that's something you are aware of or have even thought about. But while we do gift lumping, or while we've talked about that is, and if you guys are aware, the tax law changes of 2017 doubled the standard deduction for most people. So a single filer, the standard deduction is $12,000, and for a married couple, the standard deduction is $24,000. So a lot of our clients, of course, still itemize, but the easiest items to itemize would be state and local taxes, mortgage interest, and charitable deductions. Those three things. So regardless of how much money you pay in state and local taxes, and that includes property taxes and any other local taxes, state income taxes, whatever, they cap those itemizable taxes deductions at $10,000. So I use an example there at the bottom of the page, and I'm just going to use a hypothetical married couple. Let's say they make $150,000 between them. They're going to pay a whole lot more than $10,000 in state and local taxes, but they're going to be capped at $10,000 for itemization purposes. And then let's say they have a mortgage of, I'm just going to pick a number, $200,000. And let's say they've refinanced recently at these low rates, but they're still paying 2.5%. 2.5% of $200,000 is $5,000. So let's say they get to deduct $5,000 in mortgage interest. And then the last line item that's easily deductible are charitable gifts. Well, let's say they give gifts to West Virginia State equaling $5,000. Pat used that example before about making a gift potentially over a 5-year period. So let's say that they do $5,000 in charitable gifts. Well, that total comes to $20,000, as you can see. Well, the total standard deduction for a married couple is $24,000. So of course, it's going to be more advantageous for that example for that couple to use the standard deduction. So therefore, they really got no financial benefit from the charitable deduction. So what we talk to clients about is doing what we call gift lumping, where you kind of pay future year's gifts in advance. And I can talk to you about a couple of different ways to do it in just one second. But the reason it's applicable is here at the bottom of the page. Let's say I'm going to use that same couple as our example. Let's say that they're in the habit of giving $5,000 away annually. I'm going to suggest that they consider giving 5 years worth of gifts at one time. So in year one, they're going to give $25,000 away. In years 2 through 5, they don't give anything away and they just take the standard deduction. So in year one, they're going to get charitable deductions of $25,000. They'll get to itemize their $10,000 in state and local taxes, and they'll get their mortgage interest of $5,000 for a total of a $40,000 deduction in year one. Then in years 2 through 5, they get the standard deduction of $24,000, which of course is indexed for inflation. But just to use simple math, if they do the gift lumping, their total deduction would be, in example B, $136,000. If they don't do gift lumping and continue to give gifts the way they're doing right now, they take the standard deduction, and over a 5-year period, they're only getting deduct $120,000. So you can see they're giving away the exact same amount of money. They just timed their gifts differently, and yet they got $16,000 more in tax benefits by lumping that gift in 1 year. Now, I'll say this next part, kind of maybe somewhat tongue-in-cheek. A lot of people say, well, can I give the gift directly to charity? And I would say, yeah, Chris would never turn down a $25,000 gift all at one time, neither would Pat. But then some people would come to me and say, if I give Chris $25,000 this year, I'm afraid he might just come back to me next year and ask me for some more, and I won't be able to. So a strategy that some people might want to consider is what we call a donor advised fund. And I'm not sure who is familiar with what a donor advised fund is, but it's basically a giving account. It's an account that most all financial and investment firms have, and you can make a gift to that fund, and then you can distribute money from that fund to the charity of your choice, and you can do it over a period of time. So, for example, in this example I have here, in year one, you can give a $25,000 gift to the donor advised fund. Morgan Stanley has one. Ours is called MS Gift, stands for Morgan Stanley Gift. Gift is an acronym that stands for Global Impact Funding Trust. We will distribute money from that donor advised fund as long as it's going to a 501c3 charity. Unfortunately, there's some limitations. You couldn't give it to the neighbor down the street that needs help or something like that. But to an organization like West Virginia State Foundation, you can certainly give to, because it's a 501c3 charity. But you can put $10,000 or $25,000 in year one, and then you can distribute $5,000 per year. So, for example, the capital campaign that Pat referred to at the beginning, where someone might want to pledge a $25,000 gift, they might want to do it through either cash or appreciated stock or whatever. But you can make that gift to the donor advised fund, take the full tax deduction in year one, and distribute the gift to the charities years 1 through 5. So, long story short, charity still gets all the money. You get to time your deduction. You get the time when the charity receives the money, but you're going to wind up a lot better tax-wise if you can structure your gifts properly. So again, I know that's a lot. I know that's kind of fast, but I'll move on from that so we can get kind of more to the plan giving part. But one last thing I'll talk about on current gifts that I want to talk about that a lot of people may or not be aware of are what's called qualified charitable distributions. And again, I don't know any of the demographics of people on the phone, but if you happen to be over the age of 70 and a half and you have to take required distributions from your IRA, your Congress made permanent a provision called QCD, or qualified charitable distribution, where you can make a distribution from your IRA up to $100,000, and that goes directly to a charity. You don't pay tax on the money. Now, here's a catch. Because of COVID, Congress did away with required minimum distributions in 2020. However, you and I both know charities still need the money, and you want to find a way to give to them. So if you happen to be in the category where you have to make a distribution from an IRA, or if you happen to be over 70 and a half, or if you happen to know somebody who is, I'm advocating clients still consider doing QCD. They may not do the full amount of what would have been their required distribution, since they're not required in 2020. But since the charity still needs the money, and since you probably still want to donate the money, I would argue that giving through a qualified charitable distribution is the simplest, neatest, easiest, cleanest way to give, because the money comes out of the IRA, but you don't have to pay any income tax on it. You don't need to worry about itemizing on your tax return because you don't show the income on your tax return. So if you don't want to do the gift lumping we talked about before, you can just take the standard deduction and give the gift directly from the IRA. But what I like about it, what people don't think about, is since the income doesn't even show up on your federal income tax, most people's state income is based on their federal income level. So since it doesn't show up on your federal income, you don't pay state tax on it either. So it's just a very neat, easy, clean way to make a gift to a charity through your IRA. And I think one future benefit, which may not be a huge benefit, but since required minimum distributions are based on the dollar amount of the value of the account, anything that you can do to give gifts away to reduce the value will reduce future years' required distributions. So I think there's kind of a hidden tax benefit in that as well. So again, if you know anybody over the age of 70 and a half, they don't have to take money out of their IRA this year, but if they would consider doing it through QCD to a charity, I think it'd be a great idea. So that's what I had on current gifts. And of course, we can come back at the end and ask any questions. What I talked about on planned gifts, there are so many ways to do it. There's very simple ways, like Chris said. There's, you can write it in your will, you can change beneficiary and life insurance policy, or so on. And there are also very complex ways of making charitable gifts to a beneficiary, like charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust, charitable gift annuities, things like that. No single one plan works for everybody. I would just say work with Chris. If you have any interest, if you think you might be interested in making a planned gift to West Virginia State, I would say contact Chris. He's got a network of experts, of financial planners and insurance experts and legal experts, lawyers that he can refer to, and he'll help you work through that. But I think what I want to talk about is, why would somebody want to make a planned gift? So I'll just say, historically, a lot of people think planned gifts to charities at the state were set up to save estate taxes. I'm not sure how many people are aware of what the current estate tax laws are, but they're actually very generous right now. The current estate tax credit is $11.5 million per person. And Congress also a few years ago made a provision called portability permanent, meaning the surviving spouse can check a box on the estate tax return saying, I hereby elect my spouse's estate tax credit to be carried over into mine. So therefore, a married couple could theoretically pass $23 million estate tax free to their kids, grandkids, whatever. Obviously, that covers many, many people. I mean, I don't know, there really aren't that many people that have an estate larger than 23 million. Unfortunately, there's a lot of talk about this potentially going away, maybe sooner than later. Right now, this provision is subject to sunset at January 1st of 2026. However, there's a lot of talk that depending on the outcome of the election, and I don't want this to get political, but the Democratic candidate has 3 tax proposals, and the most common one that he floats out there is to reduce the estate tax credit from $11.5 million per person to $3.5 million per person. Thereby, a married couple could only pass then $7 million estate tax free. Again, that's not going to catch many people, but the difference between the $7 million and the $23 million is $16 million. At estate tax rates of almost 50%, that's about $8 million of potential more estate tax liability that people have to pay. So some donors do give gifts for tax purposes, but on the contrary, most studies have proven that people make planned gifts to the charities that they've given to throughout their life, the things that they feel really strongly about, the things that they feel benefited them. I'm sure many alumni of West Virginia State feel like West Virginia State gave them a start and gave them an education and gave them advantages that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So they want to make those gifts. So we talked about, and I said this earlier, current gifts are essential, but planned gifts can be transformational. Pat's right. Most people may not feel comfortable making a major gift during their lifetime. And I think I saw the biggest change in that back in the financial crisis in 2008, when people saw, in some cases, half or more of their net worth kind of disappear almost overnight because of mistakes made by banks and Wall Street and so on. People got a little bit afraid of, what might happen in the future. So people were a little bit less likely to make major gifts during their life, but they feel very comfortable leaving those gifts at their death. And then the concept that I want to talk about with you guys is the concept, what we call replacing yourself. I've given seminars for many years on this topic alone, and I'll try to give it quickly. But the concept of replacing yourself is the idea of leaving a gift to the charity of your choice equal to what would generate an amount equal to what your annual support is. So again, using the example we've used here in the last couple minutes, if you're in the habit of giving $5,000 a year to West Virginia State, I believe Chris told me that they have an endowment policy of giving away 4%. So if you wanted to leave a gift to West Virginia State that's going to generate $5,000 per year, you'd have to leave a gift of $125,000. A lot of people might be planning on leaving money to their kids or grandkids. And unfortunately, in this day and age, people are scattered all over the country. Your kids might be in Charlotte, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, New York, wherever they might go. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't stay here in West Virginia. And they know that if they give that money away to their kids would probably support charities more close to them. And some people say, you know what, I want to give my kids money, but also want to make sure that I continue to support the causes that were important to me, again, like West Virginia State. So the concept of replacing yourself, I think, is very important. And we talked about just some easy ways to make a planned gift. Of course, you can give cash, stock, and again, this is a little bit redundant with what Chris had, even real estate gifts. But I think the bottom two are something that people don't think often about, but it's also very easy. And I'll defer the life insurance topic to Don, but it's just so easy to call your life insurance agent and get a beneficiary designation change form and change your beneficiary of your life insurance policy. But the one I'll focus on there is at the bottom, leaving your IRA. A lot of people don't think about leaving an IRA to a charity, but it's really, I think, advantageous to both you and your family. And like Pat said, I think you can accomplish everything that you want to accomplish, including make sure the family gets what they get. But just in a quick summary, if you leave your IRA to your spouse, they can inherit that. Just take over the IRA as if it's their own. They can fold it into their IRA, and they'll have to take distributions based on their own timetable, basically based on their age. There was a new act passed by Congress in 2019 called the Secure Act. It actually changed the rules for a non-spousal beneficiary. So if you're not married, or maybe your spouse predeceased you, or for whatever reason you don't intend to leave your retirement account to your spouse, you'd be listing what's called a non-spousal beneficiary. And in the case of leaving it to a child or a grandchild or another type relative, that non-spousal beneficiary now has to take out the distributions over a 10-year period. So tax deferral can continue, but the taxes will be paid over that 10-year period. I would argue that if you have any charitable intent at your death, leaving an IRA to a charity is probably the most beneficial, because if you leave your IRA to a charity, they're going to inherit it tax-free. So if you have, various assets in your estate, let's say some cash and some investments and some real estate, and again, an IRA, if you have any charitable intent, we could talk about it, but I would argue that leaving the IRA to the charity would probably be the most tax advantageous way, because again, charity doesn't pay tax, but if your kids get it, they will pay tax on it. So they'll get less than what you intended them to get. And again, it's as simple as calling your bank or investment firm and just saying, I want to make a beneficiary change. And I threw those two terms out there at the bottom. You can do it both on a percentage basis or a pecuniary basis, which is a dollar amount. So you can say, I want to leave $125,000 to West Virginia State, or I want to leave 50% of this IRA to West Virginia State and 50% to my children, or however you want to break it down. You can do it any way you want. But again, given the tax advantages and the fact that of course, you no longer need the money, I would argue that that's probably something a lot of people need to look into. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money doing an estate plan, going to a lawyer, drafting a lot of complex documents. It's as simple as just changing a beneficiary designation. So that's all I had. I know that was quick. Again, I probably could have focused all my comments on the plan giving part, but I wanted to cover a couple of the current giving strategies. But if anybody has any questions, that's my contact information. Feel free to call or email. Chris, of course, knows how to get a hold of me. Pat can get a hold of me, but I'd be happy to help facilitate a gift, of course, to West Virginia State, or for any charity of your choice for that matter. So,
yeah.
So
Kelly,
I didn't take too much time.
No, thank you. And I wanted to ask a question, because we had something come across the chat, and I think, Pat, you did answer this, but when you talk about making, you mentioned the QCD, the qualified charitable get distributions, but also the RMDs, right? The required minimum. How do you often either guide your clients into making those gifts, or is that something that is mostly handled from the side of the university or the 501c3 organization? How closely are you all working together, and how seamless is that process?
Well, great question. Probably lots of different types of answers, or lots of moving parts there. I like helping my clients make the most tax efficient decisions possible. So if I know they have charitable intent and I know they're making required minimum distributions, I'm going to talk to them about taking part or all of that required minimum distribution and doing those distributions as qualified charitable distributions. I'm happy to facilitate. I rarely get in the habit of convincing a client to make the gift. It's typically the client already wants to make the gift. They just want to make it the best way possible.
Right.
But if you all have somebody in mind that might fit, I'd be happy to explain it to them, happy to show them how to make the distribution. Mechanically, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, and to circle back to something you also said, when we talk about plain giving, it's, when I think of plain giving, again, it looks at assets, right? So it is current giving as well. So that part you did talk about whether it's giving through equities, property, and certainly taking into consideration, the QCD and RMDs is a component of plain giving. That's a really important component, because again, it expands upon the impact that folks can make. So thanks again, Kelly.
Yeah, no problem. And, like I said, I think people sometimes don't think about the different ways. A lot of times people think they have to get their checkbook out. And as you know, there's many more creative ways they can do it, and it probably be more tax savvy, if you will.
Right. Well, thank you. So now
I'll stop the share here.
All right. So now I want to open it up. If folks have any additional questions they would like to ask before we head over and let Dawn tell us a little bit about insurance.
So I have a question. This is Dr. Safor. Along the lines of being creative, let's say a person has a book deal and they receive royalties, or let's say they own IP on something and they receive a commercial royalty share, how would that person go about designating? And let's say that their royalty share is already at a set percentage. Let's say they wanted to share that percentage with the university, 50% of their share or 25% of their share. What tax considerations or what regulatory considerations will need to be discussed if a person wanted to basically share their royalty payment?
Yeah, well, that's a very technical question, and I have to preface it by saying I'm not a CPA, so I probably better be careful on the answer, but I would think you could probably do it two ways. You could discuss it with the issuer of the royalty and probably get payments going in different directions, and I would think that if the royalty was going directly to the charity, that part of it wouldn't even show up on your tax return. Probably the simpler way to do it would be to just continue to get your royalty payments and then turn around and distribute some of that money back to the charity. There are limitations on how much of your income you can deduct for charitable purposes. They raised those limits this year due to COVID, but they'll go back to the normal limits next year. So cash gifts are typically limited to 50% of your income, and non-cash gifts are typically limited. I'll just generalize it by saying 30%. So if you're turning around and receiving royalties and then turning around and giving some of those royalties back to the college, as long as those royalty gifts don't exceed that percentage of your overall income. I'm assuming the royalties would just be a percentage of your income versus 100%. But if you're giving that income back, you could then deduct it that way as well. So I'd probably talk to a CPA maybe that might have more expertise in that field, but I would think you could do it either one of those two ways.
So you answered that if the person is actually living, and so if you wanted to make that part of a planned gift, would you go through the same way? I mean, how you would almost have to, I guess, set that up differently. Is that correct?
Yeah,
like if
well,
you wanted to.
Yeah. You'd have to, like, I've had clients that gave royalties from natural gas properties and so on to charities, and they just spell that out in their will that the charity is to receive those royalties at their death. So then whoever's in the business of issuing the royalty checks then just start making checks payable to the charity at that point.
Okay.
Hope that helped.
It does.
All right.
I just, when you think about being creative, I thought I would just kind of bring that up because that's a creative route that some may be in that position. They're already receiving royalties and may not have thought that maybe they could, share some of those royalties as a outright gift or as part of some type of planned gift initiative. And so
exactly.
Kind of consider what the options are if someone chooses to go that route.
Yep, definitely worth exploring.
Yep. Well, thank you again, Kelly. And so now I will go ahead and pass it over to Don. Don?
I had to unmute first. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Great job, Kelly. Kelly and I, we actually work together some, referring clients back and forth, and he always does a great job. Let me get my screen share ready.
Thank you, Don.
And, let's see, share screen, and I'm going to share screen 2. You guys starting to see my screen yet or no?
No, but if you would like, oh, here we go.
Are we good now?
There you go.
Okay. Can you guys see the PowerPoint up now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. There we go. So you guys are seeing it from the beginning? Okay. Okay. Well, I want to first thank Chris for inviting me to be a guest speaker on this at this event. Normally this would obviously be in person, but due to COVID, I'm sitting here at my desk in Charleston. My name is Don Tiaco Wilson. I go by Don. Some of you may know me as Taco Wilson. I grew up here in Charleston playing sports, and I like to say I was a good athlete 20-something years ago. not anymore. So that's me there. I'm the managing partner and chairman, founding member of Capital Insurance Group. We have offices throughout West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Michigan, and North Carolina. We have 15 offices in 9 states now. Been in business right at 4 years. But as you can see up there, I have 15 years of experience specializing in all things insurance. I like to say, if it's insurance, we do it at my company. And I don't do the stuff Kelly does. I'm not a registered rep. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm an insurance specialist, and I specialize in all things insurance. I was fortunate enough to be named the best insurance agent in the Valley twice so far in my career, including last year and in 2013. And I'm obviously involved with a ton of charities. I sit on the boards of hospice and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and a ton of other nonprofits around, as you guys can see, Goodwill, African American Philanthropy in Action, and others. I'm a founding member of the Keep Your Faith Corporation, which we do a ton of community events and mentoring of at-risk youth. So we'll get started. I specialize in insurance. It's what I do. So we're going to talk about how to leverage insurance in your retirement and in your charitable giving. I like to say leverage, protect, and preserve. It's kind of like the financial pyramid that Kelly's probably really familiar with. Protection, accumulation, distribution. We specialize in the protection phase of that financial pyramid. We want to protect those assets. And we always talk in terms of buckets of money. Essentially what that means is you want to pre-plan instead of crisis plan. So you want to have what we like to call a bucket of money for each situation. And that money is working to accomplish the goal for that particular need or situation. We don't want to use retirement dollars for, paying for a funeral. You don't want to use the money for its non-designated use. So you want to use that money for what it's for. So today we're going to talk about leveraging insurance and retirement and in giving, leverage, protect, and preserve. Okay. And we're going to talk about a few products, charitable gift annuities, which is something Kelly does a lot of, I'm sure. We do some of it, but it's really not what Capital Insurance Group does. So we would refer you to an investment advisor like Kelly and Greystone. We would advise you on the protection side of things because we're an insurance agency and we don't like to try to dabble in anything that we do. We like to specialize on the insurance side. Okay. So charitable gift giving, according to a report released by Atlas of Giving, as you can see, U.S. nonprofit giving grew by 4.6% back in 2015, nearly $480 billion. You guys all on this call understand the importance of giving to a charity. But planning for that, as Kelly talked about in his presentation, is the key. Do you have a strategic plan by which you're, one, trying to limit your tax liability when doing so? And two, like I just said, do you have a bucket of money intended for that? Or are you taking from another bucket and losing your foundation of what that particular group of money was designed to the goal that money was designed to accomplish? And we want to make sure that you're planning these things out so that you can limit your tax liability and things like that. I'm also not a tax professional, but we do refer to some CPAs in town. We also refer to some estate planning attorneys, but you want to have a great team. You want to have an investment advisor, that insurance agent, that tax attorney, or also the estate planning attorney and a CPA, so that you make sure that you're maximizing your gift giving ability. Okay. Important tax facts about charitable gift annuities. Simply, you could be limiting some. You could do this tax free if you utilize life insurance. The gift may be tax exempt from federal gift taxes. The charitable organization typically pays no tax on the gift, and you can do it through cash. It has to be cash or property, and of course, the charity must be deemed qualified by the Internal Revenue Code. You have to make sure that the charity that you're giving to, in this case, obviously West Virginia State University, would qualify for that. But I'm sure you guys have other organizations that you may be involved with. Always make sure that the company or the charity that you're giving to is a qualified charity through the Internal Revenue Code before you get in a little trouble donating to a non-qualified organization. There's some advantages and disadvantages. Obviously the gift of the policy, we're talking life insurance. We're going to get into some life insurance here in just a second, but the gift on the policy may be tax deductible. Their death benefit guarantees, and it's pretty simple to set up a life insurance policy that you could deem and make a charity the beneficiary on. It's pretty simple just to, if let's say you have currently a $250,000 life insurance policy and you want to give 10% of that life insurance policy to a charitable organization. It's simply, and like Kelly was saying earlier, it's pretty easy to and free to just change the beneficiary designation 10% to West Virginia State University. If you've got a paid up policy, typically that's going to be a whole life policy if it's going to be paid up, and you can just simply change the beneficiary designation in doing that, which is we've seen that done. We've also seen organizations start giving trees where you purchase a brand new life insurance policy. You could set a dollar amount goal. We've seen, churches do this and other organizations do this where you do a giving tree and you could start it out with small universal life policies or even a small whole life policy in which everyone purchases a new life insurance policy and names the charitable organization as the full beneficiary of the policy. We've seen those at, typically $25,000, $50,000, and you can just make the monthly premium payment. You as the owner of the policy can make a monthly premium payment each month, and at your passing, leave behind a legacy of $25,000, $50,000, $150,000 in life insurance proceeds, which are not taxed to the organization, and it gives you the ability to leave that legacy behind at a minimal cost. I mean, you could, depending on age, you could be talking $75 to $125 a month. You could be talking less than that if you're younger, and it's pretty easy for us to quote that out for you and start that giving tree and make that ask. There's letters and things that we've already created that you could send out to all the alumni and put that challenge out for them to purchase, a universal or whole life policy, naming West Virginia State University as the beneficiary. So you've accumulated assets, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how to protect those assets, right? As we often say, it's not going to happen to you until it does. So if you haven't properly put in place and leveraged some of the things like umbrella coverage or proper auto coverage and things of that nature in your personal auto and home policies or business policy, you may also lose some of that, like we talked about the buckets of money. You may lose the ability to keep accumulating as a result of your assets not being properly protected. So this is simply liability coverage that we talk about. We specialize in this particular area, making sure that your personal assets are protected so that you're not using a bucket of money that you set aside, that $100 a month or that $200 a month or a $50,000 charitable gift annuity for West Virginia State. And then you find yourself in a lawsuit situation to where you haven't properly planned all of your insurance assets and personal assets from an unwanted lawsuit. And that's when we put an umbrella policy in place. And also the last thing, the wealth replacement trust, simply you would start a trust typically you would use an estate planning attorney to establish the trust. The trust would then purchase a life insurance policy in the amount of your gift. Okay, let's say you have left a gift, you're leaving a gift of $100,000 to West Virginia State. You could then purchase, the trust would then purchase a $100,000 life insurance policy. So this would not lower your heirs or your beneficiaries amount of the amount of money that they would receive as a result of you establishing a trust or establishing that gift for West Virginia State University. You would buy a life insurance policy in the amount of your gift to replace that gift in your assets, and you can do that pretty cheap as well, depending on age and things of that nature. That's why it's very important to plan these things out if you can. You know, the earlier the better, the less expensive these things can be. But we definitely think that insurance plays a key role in charitable gifting, whether it be through a charitable gift annuity, whether it be through life insurance and naming a charitable organization as the beneficiary, or through the wealth replacement trust, which doesn't lower your net worth and things like that. So you're still leaving behind the same amount of money to your heirs, but you can also designate money free and clear to a charitable organization. And that's just, I just open it up for questions or open it up to Chris to take back over.
Yeah. So Don, really quick, thank you again for that. So can you talk a little bit though about like the life insurance policies that have the riders or the kickers included with them that may, whether it's long-term care riders or thing?
Yeah. So what we're seeing a lot in this industry, and I'm sure Kelly's probably seeing a lot of it too, is because the cost of long-term care has gone up, traditional long-term care policies have gone up so much over the last decade. You've seen some companies go out of business as a result of improperly pricing on the long-term care policies. So what you're seeing is, you can buy $100,000 or $1 million policy. And if you ever are in a long-term care situation where you need long-term care, and that's just needing help with 2 of your activities of daily living. Okay, that could be, being able to transfer from the bed, needing assistance with walking and things like that. So needing help with 2 activities of daily living. So once those 2 activities of daily living, and you need assistance for them, you trigger a long-term care claim. And these policies have become really attractive. AIG has a really cool policy where it's a hybrid between life insurance and long-term care, and you can access a portion of the death benefit for long-term care proceeds. And what we're seeing is the price for an in-home nurse has increased dramatically over the last 5 to 7 years. So without that long-term care, it's becoming very cost prohibitive to provide in-home services for a long-term care need. And so what we've seen most people do is either they will buy a portion of traditional long-term care. Let's say it's $225 a day for your in-home nursing, which is expensive. You purchase a policy for $125 a day, so that you can have a portion of that care covered through your long-term care policy. But the cheapest and most cost-effective way is purchasing a hybrid policy, life insurance with the long-term care rider.
All righty. Well, thank you, Don and Kelly for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us. I want to just kind of close this out really quick. And I've always found that, so when I got into fundraising and I got into development work, someone once shared this quote with me. And so I just thought it was always a good representation of what planned giving, what giving strategically really is, right? And so it says, a man has made at least a start on discovering the meaning of human life when he plants shade trees under which he knows full well he will never sit. And so I think that really kind of, that really drives home the work that we do in development and in plan giving, and trying to get folks to kind of see, 20, 30, 40 years past their lifetime, what impact they can make. And so thank you again for everyone being on the call. We are recording this session, so we will also have it available for folks to listen to or tune into later. And if anyone on the call has additional questions, concerns, or would like one of our free plan giving guides, here's the contact information for everyone. Also, if you have questions or just would like to hear more about the work that Kelly and Don, the work that they're doing, feel free to reach out to them directly as well. So yeah, any final words before we hop off?
Chris, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
During the capital campaign that ended in 2016, I think it was, I think I did a planned giving kind of thing then. I'm not sure if we haven't clarified or revised the guidelines. So is it you that I meet with to review what I've done already?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And yes, ma'am. The short answer to that is yes. The other piece of that is, and thank you for bringing that point up, Dr. Smith. As folks have made plan gifts, specifically plan gifts that are given through, let's say, IRAs or estates that include assets that can appreciate in value, one of the things that is really good is certainly for the institution and the donor to continue to have these relationships, because what can happen, and this has happened to me a number of times in the past, is as individuals' assets increase, right, their estates grow over time, you can go back to those donors and have even deeper conversations about having bigger impacts at the institution or the charity, certainly for our sake here at West Virginia State University. So in that instance, yes, we can review that, Dr. Smith, and make sure that everything is being kind of taken care of and is in the correct standing that you would like to have it. All right.
I guess the follow-up to that, maybe I'll hold it, maybe I'll present it now, because if there's a change, I just don't remember what I did before, but let's just say that I did it yesterday and I've made a change. Do you have to put that change in writing, or you just call, or how do you handle that?
Would it be like whether it's increasing the value of?
Yes.
Yes. That would be a discussion that we can have, and then one of the things we can certainly do is make sure that with that increased value, if you want it to go to the same area, we could just update what we have on file, or if you want to establish something new, or explore other areas to support with that new commitment, we can do that as well. It would just be us having a conversation and then ironing out those details, with each donor.
So is there a packet that we send out to people? I know we've had these seminars before, Pat. I think sometimes just, and I guess with COVID, we're not having too many meetings, but even in Baltimore, sometimes just having the forms and the paperwork that people look at will help encourage them to do something.
Well, we have a pretty comprehensive estate planning guide that we can send out. And then we have a smaller brochure that has a nice table that lists all the different options. And one thing that we always encourage people to do too is to consult with their own advisors, because we can make suggestions, but really you need to work with an advisor that you're comfortable with to make sure that everything is covered. But we can send the estate planning guides out to everybody who's on this call. And that just walks you through step by step, all the things to consider. And then just
how do we get this? I know we have these seminars. I just don't know how we disseminate this to a broader group. I know it's a cost factor, and we just don't mail it to 14,000 people. I'm just
Right.
not sure how we reach the people. We tend to reach the people that we reach, and we see the
Yeah.
same people. I'm just not sure how we get the message to other people. And I guess I'm thinking about class of 64. I'm always thinking about class of 64 because we're members of the 70 club. And
Yeah.
so I get a call yesterday from a 64 member. You know, she likes to give every year to 64. I want to be able to talk to her and convince her about plan giving.
Right. Right.
And I'll email you the name, Chris.
Yes.
I'm going to
Yes.
talk to her tonight, but I don't know how we get the info. There's a population out there that we really should be making decisions if we haven't already done,
Right.
as it relates to estate planning, updating your wills and your trust and things like that. It's a perfect opportune time for a class of 64, in my opinion. I'm only speaking for my classmates, because I try to encourage them to give every year to that scholarship. But I'm just trying to see, how do we get them, convince them to, and it's almost in the words of Dr. Pride. I appreciate her vision that says, it's not for right now, but it's for West Virginia State of the future.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point,
Okay, Chris.
Yeah.
I know that question. I know that question wasn't directed at me, but I'm gonna give you
Right.
a suggestion. You know, from serving on as many boards as I have, you know, board members are your best advocates for plan giving, and members of the foundation or alumni. And if you have a network of alumni, I would say you can help Chris in 3 ways. Number one is you can go out and present the case yourself. Number two, you could, you know, schedule a meeting. Of course, in this day and age of COVID, it might be a scheduled phone call or something rather than a lunch. Or you can just say, Chris, here's some names and phone numbers, go get them. But I think, you know, one of those 3 strategies, if you use the entire network, that's going to branch out and that'll multiply, and you'll get that multiplier effect, and you'll have more and more donors considering plan giving if you do it right.
Yeah.
So Chris, consider this. And I think one of the key things he said was perhaps a Zoom for
Right.
a Zoom for classes, because homecoming this year would have been class of 65. And they missed it, and I keep hearing them talk about it. Somehow it would have been nice if we could have a Zoom for the class of 55. I mean,
That's a great
what am I
idea.
trying to say? Belinda, 65 would have been this year, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I wanted to do something for the class of 64, would we call Belinda and have who owns the Zoom, Belinda or the university? Who pays the bill, rather?
Well, Belinda has an account through the National Alumni Association. And then several of us on the advancement staff are on the university's account. So,
Okay, so if this call is related to university, we don't want to dip into alumni. So if it's a fundraising thing, we would go
Sure.
to your account.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cynthia has an account. So for foundation things, she's usually the one who sets them up.
So if I find enough interest, I will talk to Cynthia. Is that the way it goes, or call you?
Well, I would say talk with Chris or
Yeah.
me or Sue about the programming piece, what you want to accomplish. And then we can have the appropriate person actually set up the call. And it
Okay,
might
so-
be for classes, it might be great to go through Belinda.
Okay, so I'm gonna put on my BOG hat now, which says we start with the vice president, which would be you, but you're saying go to Chris or Belinda.
I'm happy to work with you on that.
No, I want to do protocol, so.
We're a small team and we all talk with one another. I was thinking in terms of having the messaging going out from Belinda if it's a class-based program. It could be co-authored by me and Belinda, by Chris and Belinda, whatever you think is going to be the most effective to reach the audience.
I got you.
And really quick, Dr. Smith, I'll just kind of say one of the best ways, and Kelly said this, and we have talked about it, but one of the best ways for us to really speed up the gift process is when we get those recommendations or referrals from folks like yourself, right? Because one of the things I know pretty well is that, look, a cold call or even putting together something like this and then taking it on the road, if you will, on the virtual road and taking it to folks. I think there's still a level of apprehension, right? Like, hey, they're just trying to either, sell me something or they're trying to get me to give away money. But I think if it comes from someone who's walked in those shoes, who's made that commitment, who kind of knows, the process, individuals are much more inclined to really kind of jump right in and say, hey, look, I spoke with Dr. Smith. She told me about her experience. Chris, I know why you're here. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. And so one of the things I would say is let's the two of us have a conversation around, maybe it's 3 to 5 individuals that really well that would say, hey, look, let's set up individual Zoom calls with each one of those individuals, with Dr. Smith, with you. It could be include myself. We could include Belinda as well to talk about alumni engagement, and we could have these kind of intimate kind of campfire chats with individuals and really begin to talk individually about their experience in their philanthropy and plan giving engagement with us. And so let's just, I marked down here to have a conversation with you. I'll give you a call here very, very soon to follow up on this, because one of the things I know is that class, so, as early as the 50s, all the way up through, let's say the 2000s, those folks are eligible to make plan gifts. If you've got assets in an IRA or whole life insurance policies or any of those things, people can make these commitments. It's just a matter of us showing them how easy and how palatable we can make that giving experience. And so I'll definitely individually reach out to you and kind of put together a roadmap going forward.
So if I can just add to that, I think that's a great idea to go after the classes, and there may very well be someone from each class or several alums from each class who could probably serve as ambassadors to kind of help make the connection. It's always good to already have members of a particular class who are involved on one level or another. So I think that's a really great idea if we target, every class as far back as we need to go up to last year's class, because, we probably don't want to make the mistake and assume that just because they graduated last year, they don't have any assets. You
Right.
never know,
Right.
what their how fortunate they could have been in their career or investments or what have you. So I actually support that idea. I think it's a great idea to strategically make inroads with each class year.
Yeah.
I really want to thank all of you for this conversation. And I think what Dr. Smith and Dr. Safour are suggesting of getting affinity groups together is great. I also hear Chris and Kelly talking about how important it is to get it down to one-on-one conversations, because we can share information this way. We're really happy to have the folks on the call here. A session like this will plant seeds. It'll start people thinking about it. But for them to make a commitment, it's going to take a little bit more personal attention. But what could happen is you have a class-based meeting, you see who's interested, and then you follow up with people one-on-one.
Yeah.
For those who are interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can interject, this is Matt Coleman. I think that the final giving is very private when you're deciding, and you're not going to do it in a group. But it takes the group sometimes to get that momentum going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also takes, look, I think it also takes, the ambassadors that Dr. Smith said to bolster attendance at these things, right? Because ultimately we can have an amazing message, but if we don't have folks, a captive audience, again, the message just gets lost. And so I am in total agreement with that, of having ambassadors, making sure that people show up and are engaged in these conversations, because again, I think the information that was even shared today can be information that a lot of people benefit from, even if they never intend to make a gift to West Virginia State University. One of the things I would like to see is the plan giving office here at West Virginia State University become a resource for our alumni and friends when they have questions related to plan giving or estate planning and those sorts of things, because we have these great partnerships with individuals like Kelly and Don and others. So again, I think it starts with relationships, and it starts with helping us get this message out there. And I completely agree with you, Dr. Smith, going at it based on the class years. At least let's get through the 60s and see how we can do there, and then expand, further.
I have one final, and it's not really plan giving, but it goes back to, I think the 5-year pledge. On our university's website, is there a spot that I can go to and see all the different funds that you can allocate your $5,000 a year? I know there's the university fund, which is unrestricted, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there's the presidential scholarship. But what else? I mean, where would I find that on the web?
We don't have a list of every single fund. We've got hundreds of accounts, but we do have it listed by categories. So the main categories of giving: scholarships, athletics, academics, and then within that you can designate a specific college or department.
So where is that? Is that under the drop down for foundation or?
Yeah, let me send you the link for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think a lot of times it helps people, and I'm off topic now because I left early last night and didn't get to participate in your presentation. It helps people, when you're asking people to give, it helps them to know what they're supporting. And we know scholarship is there, but they may not know there's a fund for the nursing program. You see what I'm saying? All those other different, and we know about Katherine Johnson, we know about Class of 64, but there may be something in somebody else's background where they were really engaged when they were students. Say, oh, I'd like to give to that fund. So.
Yeah, we should look at building that out a little bit more, probably in more detail than we have right now.
Yeah, but I'll take a look at it and we'll have a conversation.
Okay.
Because I keep hearing about what are we going to do to help the university. People need to know exactly what they're going to give to. And it kind of helps. Like last night, Dennis suggested that Dr. Pride will have a lot of frequent flyer points and go off and meet with all these people. Well, I'm not interested in having her come to Detroit to talk to a General Motors, and we know exactly why she wants General Motors money. Is it for STEM research? Is it for a computer lab? You see what I'm saying? So.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's when we're working with a donor like that, a corporation or a foundation or a major gift donor, we're looking at what are their philanthropic interests, and then we come up with proposals that align with those interests that also support needs at the university. So it's not, usually when you're talking with someone of that size, you're not just giving them a menu of all of the funds, you're really focusing where their interests are. And again, that takes conversation and research, but we can definitely provide a little bit more comprehensive roadmap for people who are just curious what there is to support.
Right.
Thank you. Good comments.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for participating today. And we'll, like I said, we're recording this. We'll make sure to get this information out, and certainly you all have everyone's contact information. So again, thank you, and go State.
Thank you for all our Zoom buddies. We appreciate you.
We're back to Zoom out.
Thanks, Chris and Pat.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Kelly.